Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. It's August 27th, 2025, and this is part one of our essential current affairs analysis. We've gone through, well, quite a stack of material, government reports, judicial notes, all sorts, to bring you the insights that, really matter. Especially if you're preparing for the UPSC exams, think of this as connecting those crucial dots.
Exactly. Our goal here is to cut through the noise, find those key pieces of information, and show you how they link together. We're covering a lot of social shifts, legal points, economic changes, environmental issues. Some topics might ring a bell, actually, which is great for revision, digging a bit deeper.
Okay, then, let's unpack this. We're starting with some really powerful stories about empowerment and change right here in India. First off, this incredible rise in women joining the workforce. I mean, it really feels like a paradigm shift happening right now. The numbers are, frankly, quite striking. The women's employment rate, the WPR, jumped from 22% back in 2017-18 to, get this, 40.3% in 2023-24. And it's not just about more jobs. The unemployment rate for women also dropped significantly, from 5.6% down to 3.2% in that same time frame. What's behind such a massive shift?
It's fascinating when you break it down. You see this huge growth in rural areas, 96% increase in female employment there, and in urban areas, still a very substantial 43% rise. So this isn't just a small uptick. It feels like a fundamental change in the labor market structure. And, a key insight here is that this isn't just good for society. It's a real economic booster. Study after study shows empowering women economically directly lifts GDP growth. Some forecasts suggest a pretty significant percentage boost to India's economy if these trends hold. It really shows how social progress and national prosperity go hand in hand.
That connection is so important. And a major engine driving this seems to be women-led entrepreneurship. The stats here are almost hard to believe. Female self-employment. It leaped by 30 percentage points from 51.9% up to 67.4%. And nearly half, almost 50% of all startups are registered with DPIIT now have at least one woman director. Financial inclusion seems key too, right? Women got 68% of the MWDRA loans, and they make up 44% of the beneficiaries under PM Svanidhi. Oh, and the number of women-led MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises nearly doubled. From 1 crore to 1.92 crore. That created over 89 lakh jobs just for women.
And this points to a really crucial shift in thinking. We're moving past just women's development, which often meant programs designed for women, maybe without their full input and planning. Now, the focus is shifting towards women-led development, where women are the leaders, the decision makers, the innovators shaping things themselves. Look at the gender budgets, a 429% increase over the last 10 years. That's a pretty clear signal, isn't it? It shows a policy direction that sees women as architects of progress, not just recipients.
That's a fundamental change. And it all feeds into this ambitious goal of reaching 70% female workforce participation. That's seen as critical for achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047.
It is ambitious. And achieving it, well, it's not just about policy. It also means tackling those persistent challenges.
Like what specifically? What are the big hurdles?
Well, things like affordable quality childcare are huge, safe and reliable public transport, and, still needing to address those deep-seated societal attitudes about women's roles or career path. The infrastructure and, frankly, the cultural mindset still need to evolve quite a bit to fully support that 70% goal. It raises the question, how does this growth not just benefit women, but really supercharge the national economy? That link is key.
Absolutely. Okay, from that story of empowerment, let's shift focus to another vital group, the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, or PVTGs. There's a significant move by the tribal ministry. They're pushing for a separate census just for PVTGs, planning it for 2027.
Yes, and the need for this is, well, it's quite urgent. PVTGs have historically been, let's say, almost invisible in official data. Now, the 2011 census did list about 40 of the 75 PVTGs under scheduled tribes, but many smaller groups, subsections within larger SD communities, they just weren't counted distinctly. It's like trying to help someone without really knowing who or where they are. You need that precise data. This distinct count is absolutely crucial for designing effective, targeted programs. Think about the PM Jane and Man program. It aims to bridge socioeconomic gaps for PVTGs across more than 200 districts. You can't do that properly without knowing exactly who and where they are.
So for our listeners, a quick refresher on PVTGs. They are among the most marginalized tribal communities. They were first identified way back in the early 1960s by the Daibar Commission. Today, we have 75 identified PVTGs across 18 states and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The criteria for identifying them: things like using pre-agricultural technology, very low literacy levels, and significant economic backwardness. A recent survey puts their estimated population around 45.56 lakh. Madhya Pradesh has the largest number, followed by Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh.
And just briefly, the body responsible for the census is the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India, the RGI, set up in 1949 under the Home Ministry. They handle the main census, civil registration, the sample registration system, the NPR, all that.
So what this all really means is getting accurate data is the first step towards effective policy and genuine welfare for these communities, right?
Yeah.
You can't help who you can't see.
Precisely. It's about visibility and targeted action.
Okay, let's move into governance, legal matters, and even some shifts in economic thinking. First, a really important clarification from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs MOTA on Community Forest Resource Management Plans, or CFRMPs. MOTA has made it crystal clear. It's the CFR Gram Sabhas, the village assemblies, through their own management committees, who have the sole authority to draw up these plans. That's under the Forest Rights Act, the FRA, of 2006.
This is quite significant. It actually came about because the Chhattisgarh Forest Department had issued an order saying it was the nodal agency for CFR rights, which, well, directly went against the FRA's provisions. Remember, the whole point of the FRA was to correct historical injustices against forest communities, secure their livelihoods. And these CFRMPs, they're not just about trees. They're designed to boost social equity, bringing marginalized groups, women, tribal youth into decision-making, into economic activities linked to the forest.
So these plans have to be tailored locally.
Exactly. They must fit the unique ecological, cultural, socioeconomic reality of each place. It's a community-led model, the absolute opposite of a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach. The Gram Sabha is the steward here.
And the union government even launched an initiative last year, right? The Dharti Aba Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan.
Yes, precisely to help states prepare these very plans. So if you connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about the true spirit of decentralization, empowering local communities to manage their own resources.
Now let's switch gears to free speech. A recent Supreme Court case involving social media comedians and jokes about persons with disabilities has brought up some critical observations.
Yes, and what's particularly interesting here is the court's observation that the fundamental right to freedom of speech under Article 19(1), well, it doesn't automatically extend to all types of speech. Specifically, the court differentiated commercial speech and what it termed prohibited speech.
Can you clarify those terms?
Sure. So, hate speech, or prohibited speech, generally refers to expressions that promote or incite hostility, hatred, or violence against groups based on things like religion, race, caste, ethnicity, inherent characteristics. And commercial speech is essentially advertising or communication primarily driven by an economic motive. The court is drawing lines here.
That's a crucial distinction. The court also stressed that influencers, people with large online followings, have a responsibility to act well, responsibly. They suggested looking at punitive measures under the IT rules and the Cinematograph Act, and importantly asked the government to draft more comprehensive guidelines for regulating online content.
And this isn't the first time the court has grappled with this. You might recall, for revision, the Amish Devgan case in 2020. That also differentiated free speech from hate speech and, importantly, highlighted influencer responsibility. And going back further, Shreya Singhal in 2015 was landmark. It basically said you can't restrict legitimate online speech unless there's an imminent threat of harm. A high bar.
And we do have existing laws, like Section 69A of the IT Act for blocking content and the Cinematograph Act, which prohibits slanderous material.
Right. So the framework exists, but applying it effectively online is the challenge, which really raises that central question. How do we strike the right balance? Protecting free expression, which is vital, but also shielding vulnerable groups and combating genuine harm online. It's a tough balancing act.
Absolutely. Now, shifting focus again, this time to the global economy, something quite notable happening in the U.S. The U.S. government taking a 10% stake in Intel. This looks like a significant move away from its traditional free market approach, maybe towards something more like state-led capitalism.
It's definitely catching attention. Now, technically, it's described as a passive, non-voting stake. But still, the U.S. government taking an equity position in a major private tech company like Intel. That's the big story. It's not entirely without precedent, though. If you look back, say, to the 1960s, European countries like France and the UK did intervene in strategic sectors, computers, aerospace. And of course, here in India, post-independence, we had the establishment of public sector undertakings, PSUs, precisely for rapid industrialization and state control in key areas.
So just to be clear on the terms for everyone listening, how would you define state-led capitalism versus free market capitalism here?
Okay, simply put, state-led capitalism means the government plays a significant role in directing the economy. This could be through owning key industries, allocating resources strategically, setting industrial policy, but still within a market framework, whereas free market capitalism
emphasizes private ownership, minimal government interference, and letting supply and demand guide most decisions.
So this U.S. move feels like a strategic pivot, perhaps.
It certainly looks like it, especially in a sector as critical as semiconductors, which has huge national security and technological implications.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. What are the potential global ripple effects of a major economy like the U.S. making such a visible shift? Could this usher in a different era for global economic policy?
It really could. I mean, for starters, it challenges that sort of pure free market orthodoxy, especially for sectors deemed strategic. It may encourage other countries to reevaluate their own levels of state intervention or industrial policy. For nations like India, with a history of state involvement, it might even, offer a kind of validation for certain aspects of their approach. And it definitely fuels the debate around supply chain resilience and national economic security. It's a big development to watch.
Definitely. Okay, let's move into our final section covering environment, science, and international relations. First, a positive collaboration note. The government of India and the World Food Program, the WFP, are joining forces to tackle the global hunger crisis.
Yes, and this really highlights India's growing role in global food security and humanitarian aid. The WFP, as you probably know, is the world's largest humanitarian organization. Their work involves saving lives in emergencies, yes, but also using food aid to build pathways to peace and stability, helping people recover from conflicts, disasters, climate change.
They operate in over 120 countries, including India, of course, and they received the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2020 for their efforts.
Exactly. So India partnering with them underscores its capacity and, importantly, its willingness to contribute on the global stage to fight hunger.
Now, something quite specific but important for animal health, the Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying, DAHD, has released new guidelines for animal blood transfusions and blood banks.
This might sound niche, but it's incredibly significant. These guidelines create a national framework for doing transfusions safely, ethically, and scientifically. And this is genuinely life-saving for animals facing trauma, severe anemia, blood loss during surgery, certain infections, clotting disorders.
So the guidelines cover things like donor selection, blood collection, storage, the actual transfusion protocols?
Yes, all of that. But what's really fascinating and connects to a broader theme is the integration of One Health principles. This means actively considering the links between human, animal, and environmental health to reduce risks, like zoonotic diseases spreading. It lays the groundwork for potentially creating a national network of veterinary blood banks. It's quite forward-thinking.
Interesting. Okay, let's look at India's neighborhood and geopolitics. First, a quick place in the news, Fiji. India and Fiji have announced plans to boost their defense and maritime security cooperation.
Right. And just for geographical context, Fiji, a republic in the South Pacific made up of around 330 islands, plus hundreds of smaller islets. The main islands, Viti Levu and Vanuatu, are volcanic. Mount Tamani is the highest point. The smaller islands are often coral, surrounded by reefs.
Okay, now something potentially more complex. The Tawi River and the Indus Waters Treaty. India recently issued a flood warning to Pakistan concerning the Tawi. It was framed as a humanitarian gesture.
And the crucial detail here, for anyone following the IWT closely, is that this warning was sent via diplomatic channels, not through the Indus Waters Commission, the IWC, which is the mechanism set up by the treaty itself.
And the reason for that, the Indus Waters Treaty itself remains in abeyance, essentially paused, following the Pahalgam attack.
Correct. And the Tawi River itself. It originates from the Kailash Kund Glacier up in the Doda district, flows down, becomes a left bank tributary of the Chenab, and it's often called the lifeline of Jammu City.
So what does this use of diplomatic channels instead of the treaty mechanism signal? What does it tell us about managing shared resources when formal agreements are strained?
It really highlights a difficult tightrope walk between humanitarian necessity, you have to warn about floods, and the ongoing political tensions. Bypassing the formal IWT Commission underscores the current freeze in that specific channel of communication. It suggests that even for vital shared resources like water, the trust and mechanisms for cooperation are fragile and easily impacted by broader political disputes. It's a complex situation.
Indeed. All right, let's wrap up with a few quick hits on scientific advances and environmental concerns. First, rare earth magnets. We're hearing automakers are actually cutting features from cars and looking for alternatives because of a shortage. Why are these magnets so important?
They're a type of permanent magnet made from alloys of, well, rare earth elements, that specific group of 17 elements on the periodic table. Their importance comes from their incredible properties: very high magnetic strength, good conductivity, high energy density.
Which makes them useful in
Oh, all sorts of things. Electronics, certainly. But also crucial for clean energy tech like wind turbines and electric vehicle motors, healthcare imaging, automotive sensors. They're kind of hidden everywhere.
Yeah.
The main types are neodymium magnets and samarium cobalt magnets.
Next, an interesting finding about antibodies. A new study shows immunoglobulin M, or IgM, can also act as a kind of mechanical stabilizer for harmful proteins.
Right. So IgM, as you might know, is the largest antibody. It's typically the first one our immune system makes when it encounters a new invader virus, bacteria, parasite. It's even the first antibody a fetus develops. What this new study suggests is that IgM doesn't just flag invaders. It might also physically interact with harmful proteins, perhaps preventing them from clumping together and causing damage. It's like discovering a tool has an extra unexpected function.
Fascinating. And finally, an environmental concern from Jammu and Kashmir. A study there indicates common leopards are moving into snow leopard habitats. Climate change is thought to be a factor.
This is a worrying sign. Snow leopards, as you know, are adapted to high-altitude, cold environments. We find them in J&K, Ladakh, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, or Arunachal Pradesh. They have that beautiful smoky gray coat with dark rosettes. They're solitary, mostly active dawn and dusk. And interestingly, unlike other big cats, they cannot roar. They're the state animal for both Himachal Pradesh and Ladakh.
And their conservation status is already a concern, right?
Yes. Vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, Appendix I of CEATS, and Schedule E1 of India's Wildlife Protection Act. So, when common leopards, which are generally more adaptable and can tolerate warmer conditions, start moving into their territory, it suggests habitats are shifting, likely due to warming trends. This creates competition for food, for space, and it raises that critical question. How is climate change continuing to subtly and not so subtly reshape entire ecosystems, forcing species into new interactions and creating really complex conservation challenges?
That's a sobering thought to end on. And it brings us to the close of this deep dive. Okay, let's just unpack this one last time, thinking about everything we've covered.
We really have stand a lot, haven't we? From the empowerment driving women's workforce participation, the push for tribal rights through better data, the nuances of free speech online, those big shifts in global economics, right through to environmental pressures and scientific discoveries, and connecting these dots, seeing how women's development links to economic growth, how data impacts policy, how global shifts affect local realities, how climate change impacts wildlife. That's really the key takeaway, especially for your UPSC preparation, seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. How do all these different threads, social change, legal debates, economic shifts, environmental warnings, how do they weave together to tell the larger ongoing story of India's progress, its challenges, and its evolving place in the world?
Keep asking those questions. Stay curious. Keep thinking critically about the connections.
And if you found this deep dive useful today, please do give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss future insights. We'll be back soon.
This was part 1 of your Current Affairs Deep Dive for August 27th, 2025.